This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Rishus Rav Chaimov Shlita, Shuf Rav Elbaz Chasher Rabbanim. I feel very at home over here because I remember about 10 years ago when I was a rabbi on Parsons Boulevard. So Igal called me, Rabbi, you have to come to Ohel Simcha. We're going to have a new program. We're going to have Learning Hoshana Rabba night. I said, what's Hoshana Rabba? I'm Ashkenaz. I never heard of Hoshana Rabba. What's Hoshana Rabba? He said, that's the last day of Sukkot. Really? I never even knew there's something called Hoshana Rabba. We take the Aravos and we hit them on the floor. That's all we do. No, we stay up all night. So I remember I came here and we had a big chabura, the biggest chabura I ever saw people learning Hoshana Rabba. I think we had 7 people. 10 years ago? And then Baruch Hashem, over the years, it grew and grew and grew. Every year more and more and more. And now it's like the whole world knows that Ohel Simcha is like the center of Hoshana Rabba. So we're Mavarich. I want to thank Rabbi Igal and his father and his brother and the whole Mishpacha, Davidov Mishpacha, for organizing this. Bez Hashem, they should be able to do it. Gesundheit, Rabbi Yaakov, Daniel, and Bechor. Thank you very much for... remember you brought me in about 10 years ago already. So Be'ezus Hashem, in 10 years it should be, the whole neighborhood should be filled with people learning Kol HaLayla. We should be Zoicha to Chasima, Toiva, Lanu L'Chol Yisrael, Amen. Amen. So the learning should be L'iloi Nishras. We want to bless the sponsors. All the sponsors should be blessed. Sponsors are Avner Yunayev, Ephraim Shlomo Haberstam, Uriel Mirza Gandalf, Boris Davidoff, Yona Bachayev, Yosef Tzvi Davidoff, Avram Niyazov, Yaakov Elio Davidoff, Yeshua Shmuel, Leiloi Nishmas Chaim, Aaron Ben Sora, and David Ben Bracha, and Yeshiva Ohel Simcha. All the Nadvanim, all the sponsors should be blessed, and they should be Zoicha, Oyrach Yom Yimino, Smaila, Oysher V'chavayid, Hashem Oizam Oyitain, Hashem Yivarach Samay V'Shalom. Okay, that's all. I did my thing. Have a good night, everyone. Okay. So, we're already here 10 years. We spoke about Hoshana Rabba so many times. Tonight we're going to speak about something a little different. We're going to speak about Simchas Torah. And what in the world is Simchas Torah doing after the Yom Tov of Sukkot? We spent 7 days sitting in the sukkah. We took the Daled Minim. The sukkah represents Anani HaKavod. And then when the Yom Tov is over, we take out the Sifrei Torah and we dance with the Sifrei Torah. What in the world are we doing? Why are we dancing with Sifrei Torah at the end of Sukkot? What does it have to do with the Yom Tov of Sukkot? God didn't give us the Torah now. Torah was given on Shavuos. Why are we dancing with the Torah now? You say, well, we just finished the Torah. Yeah, for 2,000 years, they finished the Torah once every 3 years. So don't say Simchas Torah is because we finished the Torah. It happens to be nowadays we finish the Torah. But for 2,000 years, they only finished the Torah Sukkot time once every 3 years. The Gemara says in Masechta Megillah, they had a 3-year cycle. By the way, I'm all for bringing back the 3-year cycle. It's much easier if there's a 3-year cycle. You know, if there's a 3-year cycle, instead of being Maver Sedra, the whole Parsha, you have 3 weeks to do Bereshis. Okay, so why are we dancing with the Sifrei Torah? What's Simchas Torah doing at the end of the Yom Tov of Sukkot? So I want to share with you a new perspective of the Yom Tov of Sukkot, and Be'ezus Hashem, hopefully this will give us a new understanding of Simchas Torah. We all know that we sit in the sukkah to commemorate which miracle? Anani HaKavod, the clouds of glory. In fact, the Bach is of the opinion that when you sit in the sukkah, you must remember the Anani HaKavod. The Bach has a very interesting chiddush. If you came here tonight just to hear this, it was worth it. The Bach says that whenever the pasuk says the word Laman, and the Torah is giving you a reason for the mitzvah, you must be cognizant of the reason for the mitzvah when you're doing the mitzvah. So when you sit in the sukkah, one must think, I'm sitting in the sukkah in order to commemorate the clouds of glory that Hashem put over our head when we left Egypt. By the way, it's very interesting. We know it's a machlokes, whether it's Anani HaKavod or Sukkos Mamish. Rashi, inexplicably, on the pasuk, L'man yedu dorei seichem, ki basukos hoshafti es bnei Yisrael, Rashi takes a side in this machlokes. Rashi says, ki basukos hoshafti, Anani HaKavod. Who asked Rashi to chime in on this machlokes between Rabbi Glatstein and Rabbi Akiva, whether it was Sukkos Mamish or Ananei HaKavod? Rashi's modus operandi. What's Rashi's job? Rashi's job is to tell us every medrash in the Chumash. Rashi says in Bereshis, Perek Gimel, Pasuk Ches, Va'ani loy basi ela lepshuto shel mikra. I'm here to tell you the simple explanation. Is that the simple explanation of the pasuk? Basukos means clouds of glory. Maybe Sukkos means actual booths, like you have in your house. You have clouds of glory. Before Sukkos, you went to the cloud store and you got clouds to sit on there. You made a sukkah. So maybe the pasuk means we sat in Sukkos. Why is Rashi chiming in? So the Mizrahi writes, Rashi's telling me pshuto shel mikra, because the pasuk says Hoshavti. Hoshavti implies that it's not something that we built on our own. It's something the Rebbeinu Shem put us in. So that implies it was Ananei HaKavod, not Sukkos Mamish. But what's interesting is the Tur in Siman Tafresh Chaf Hei, when he's codifying the mitzvah of Sukkah, he also says that you need to sit in the Sukkah in order to commemorate Ananei HaKavod. Why is the Tur chiming in on this machlokes? Why is the Tur telling me it was clouds of glory? So the Bach explains, because it is important that when you sit in your Sukkah, you need to be cognizant, you need to be focused on remembering the clouds of glory that we sat in, that the Rebbeinu Shem put us in when we were in the Midbar. In other words, if somebody went into their Sukkah and they said, Hineni muchan umezuman l'kayeh mitzvah Sukkah, and that's it, and they didn't think, I'm commemorating the clouds of glory, according to the Bach, there's something lacking in the fulfillment of the mitzvah. But it's important to know, Sukkah is only 7 days a week, only 7 days a year. But the Bach says this applies to a number of mitzvahs. For example, the mitzvah of tzitzis. According to the Bach, and it's quoted by the Mishnah Berurah, and I'm sure it's brought in the poskim of your Messiah as well. It is important when you put on your tzitzis or you put on a talis, one is supposed to think, aside from the fact you're being mekayim a mitzvah wearing tzitzis, you're wearing the tzitzis in order to remember the mitzvahs of Hashem. Likewise, when you put on tefillin, it's important to think, I'm putting on tefillin, leman tia Toras Hashem beficha, in order to remember Yetzias Mitzrayim. These are three mitzvahs where the Torah says the word leman. Fine. So here's question number one. There are many miracles in the Midbar. Yeah? What other miracles do we have in the Midbar? We had man. We had to eat food, right? Food is important. No? Yes. Jews like food. That's what I understand. Without food, you can't live. You can live without clouds of glory. You can't live without food. Why is there no Yom Tov commemorating the food? In other words, we should get together for 7 days a year, and we all eat manna bread. You go to a special bakery, and why is everyone waiting online? We're buying manna bread. Why? To commemorate the miracle of the manna. Nobody remembers the man. We don't really have any Yom Tov commemorating the man. Why don't we commemorate the man? Why don't we have a Yom Tov to commemorate the Be'er? We should have a Yom Tov. 7 days, everybody calls up Poland Spring Company. What do you need? We need a special machine installed into our house. Why do you need a machine? We have to commemorate the Be'er. We have to commemorate the water. There's no such Yom Tov. No Yom Tov commemorating the food. No Yom Tov commemorating the water. We only have a Yom Tov commemorating the clouds of glory. Clouds of glory are so important. And then here's another question. The famous comment of the Torah. Anybody know why do we celebrate Sukkot in the month of Tishrei? If we're commemorating the clouds of glory, when did God give us the clouds of glory? In Nisan. Laman yedu dorisechem kivasukos Hashem v'hoitzii oisam me'eretz Mitzrayim. When we left Egypt in Nisan. So we should all sit in Sukkot in the month of Nisan. Anyway, by the way, there are many halachos where sukkah and matzah are compared, right? We know the Gemara makes a gzeir shava, tesvav, tutu, tesvav. We know that the first night of Sukkot, you must eat in the sukkah, like on Pesach, be'erev techlu matzos. We know the Shiur achila, the first night is only a kezayis. There are many halachos that are learned out sukkah, tesvav. Rabbi Yosef Engel lists all the commonalities between the mitzvah of sukkah and the mitzvah of matzah. By the way, the Chidah says, why do we compare matzah to sukkah? The Yom Tov of Pesach is B'zchut Avraham Avinu. The Torah says the Shalosh Regalim is B'zchut the Shalosh Avos. So the Yom Tif of Pesach is b'schus Abraham. The Yom Tif of Sukkos is b'schus Yaakov Avinu. Yaakov asal l'meknei Sukkos. Yaakov and Abraham had a special relationship. You ever realize in the Chumash, Yitzchak is never called the father of Yaakov. Avraham is called the father of Yaakov. Elokei Avraham Avi ve'Elokei Yitzchak. You ever notice that? That Yitzchak is not called the father of Yaakov. Avraham is called the father of Yaakov. The Chizah says, you know why? Because Yitzchak just called him Yaakov. But Avraham, the Chizah says, called him Beni, Beni, my son, my dear one. The Chizah says, you're supposed to call your child a name of endearment. You know, my grandmother, Aleha Shalom, is from Poland, so she called my father Zinashi. You know, there are different special names of endearment. Yitzchak did not call his son Beni, Beni, Beni. Yitzchak called Esav Beni, Beni, Beni. So therefore, Yitzchak is called the father of Esav. Avraham is called the father of Yaakov, the Chida says. Because of the special relationship of Avraham and Yaakov, the Yom Tif of Avraham Pesach and the Yom Tif of Yaakov Sukkos are compared to each other, and therefore we learn out halachas of one to another. Very interesting comment of the Chida. Anyway, so the Torah asks, why do we sit in the Sukkah in the month of Tishrei? We should sit in the Sukkah in the month of Nisan. What does the Torah answer? Famous answer, that if we were to sit in the Sukkah in the month of Nisan, people would think we're just going out to enjoy the weather, and it would not be recognizable that we're going out to fulfill the mitzvah of Hashem. So therefore we go out in the rainy season when people normally come inside. We go outside so it's recognizable that we're going to do a mitzvah. But here's the question. When do we ever change a Yom Tif because of what people will think? Why do we care about what people will think? We know why we're going out. We're going out to commemorate the Ananei HaKavod. So why do we care what the Gentiles are going to think? Oh, they're not going to know that we're going out to commemorate the Sukkos that HaKadosh Baruch Hu made for us. Why do we care what the Gentiles, what they're going to say, what they're going to think? The answer of the Torah seems to be very difficult. Here's another question. Anybody know, what is Sukkos called in Parshas Mishpatim? Chag Ha'asef. What is Sukkos called in Parshas Kisisa? Chag Ha'asef. What is Sukkos called in Parshas Re'eh? Chag HaSukkos. All of a sudden, Sukkos got a new name. The first time Sukkos is mentioned, it's the festival of the harvest. The second time it's mentioned, it's the festival of the harvest. All of a sudden, you wait to Sefer Devarim in Parshas Re'eh, then it's called Chag HaSukkos. What happened? Why the name change? Why originally is it called, it's given a name of an agricultural holiday, and then in the end of the Torah it's called Chag HaSukkos. Another interesting point. I'm going to ask you a personal question. At 12 at night, 12:20 at night, I'm allowed to ask personal questions. When do you buy your lulav and esrog? Let's take a poll. Raise your hand. Who buys their lulav and esrog before Yom Kippur? One person. Who buys it after Yom Kippur? 3 people. How many people here are Jewish in the room? A few people. How many people are Mekayim the mitzvah of Daled Minim? 1 person. Very good, very good. Baruch Hashem. Do you get your Daled Minim before Yom Kippur or after Yom Kippur? After Yom Kippur. Why after Yom Kippur? You want to go from one mitzvah to another. You want to go from the chasima to another mitzvah. So the opinion of the Matei Ephraim is you should buy your lulav and esrog before the Yom Adin. Why? This way, the zechus of your machshava toiva of purchasing the Daled Minim will accrue to your merit on the Yom Adin. That's the opinion of the Matei Ephraim. He says unless you could get better schayra after Yom Kippur. He recommends getting the Daled Minim before Yom Kippur. How about building a sukkah? You build your sukkah before Yom Kippur or you build your sukkah after Yom Kippur? Before Yom Kippur. Says the Matei Ephraim, you should build your sukkah after Yom Kippur. Why? To go from the Yom Adin to a Zechus. Why is it inconsistent? Why, when it comes to the Daled Minim, does the Matei Ephraim say you should buy the Daled Minim before Yom Kippur? And when it comes to the building of the Sukkah, he says you should build the Sukkah after Yom Kippur. So I want to share with you the approach of the Gra. Probably you're familiar with it, but it's worthwhile to review it. Maybe we'll discover a few new points. The Gra is found in a number of places, primarily in his commentary to Shiurim. It's found in the Sefer Aderes Elio and Parshas Kisisa, and in the Talmidei Hagra. The Gra says as follows. Says the Vilna Gaon, there is no way that we have a Yom Tif to commemorate Ananei HaKavod. We're going to make a Yom... Oh, you know what this Yom Tif is? This Yom Tif commemorates clouds. It's a cloud Yom Tif. Are you kidding me? We're having a Yom Tif to remember cloud. I don't care how miraculous these clouds were. Jewish people are not having a Yom Tif to commemorate clouds. We're not having a Yom Tif to commemorate condensation in the atmosphere. That's not... Why would we have a Yom Tif for that? It's a miracle? Really? We don't celebrate miracles. There were 10 miracles that took place every day in the Beis HaMikdash. How many Yomim Tovim do we have a Yom Tif? Everybody go outside, make a barbecue, and make sure the fire goes straight up to commemorate the fire in the Beis HaMikdash that went straight up. Or I want everybody to buy raw meat and get a special chemical to shoo away the flies, because in the Beis HaMikdash they had a lot of meat and there were no flies. I mean, we can make Yomim Tovim from today until forever to commemorate miracles. There is no way that there's a Yom Tif to commemorate the miracle of the Ananei HaKavod. So what's the Nes? The Gra says as follows. What happened was Moshe Rabbeinu goes up to Har Sinai when? On the 6th day of Sivan. He comes down 40 days later and he sees from the distance, he's looking in his binoculars, he sees the Jewish people, they're dancing. What are they? They're dancing around a cow? What kind of cow is this? A golden cow. He can't believe it. The Rebbeinu Shalom says, break the luchos, the Jews worshipping idols. Moshe Rabbeinu says, I don't believe it. Moshe Rabbeinu sees the Jewish people worshipping the idols. He doesn't break the luchos. The Pasuk says he sees them dancing, then he breaks the luchos. Now what? Now the Jewish people are in big trouble. They say, uh-oh, we messed up big time over here. And then they look up with their binoculars, and the cloud of glory goes goodbye. There's no more Ananei HaKavod. The Ananei HaKavod left. That's the chiddush of the Gra. The Gra says the Ananei HaKavod left after the Chedo Egel. Not only that, the Gra adds in Adar Saliyah Parshas Kisisa, the Rebbeinu Shalom told Moshe Rabbeinu, that's it, we're done. I'm finished with the Jewish people. We're not hanging out together anymore. The Jewish people are on their own. So Moshe Rabbeinu says, is there anything we could do about it? So Hashem says, I don't know, come up one more time. So Moshe Rabbeinu goes up to Har Sinai, he goes up Yud Ches Tammuz, he comes down Erev Rosh Chodesh Elul, and he says, Rebbeinu Shalom, please, could you please forgive us for the Chedo Egel? So Hashem says, okay, come up again. Moshe Rabbeinu goes up when? Rosh Chodesh Elul. And he goes up, his ascent is marked by the sound of the shofar. Ola Elokim B'Sruah. And Moshe Rabbeinu comes down 40 days later on Yom Kippur. And he hears, Rachamim, we're good? Good. And he hears Rebbeinu Shalom say the magic words, Salachti kidvarecha. Great. So Klal Yisrael is b'simchat suma. God forgave them for the sin of the golden calf. And they take out their binoculars, and they're waiting for the clouds of glory to come back. Clouds of glory are not coming back. Not only that, in the interim, God told Moshe Rabbeinu, Hine anoichi sholeach malach. I am through with the Jewish people. I can't take them anymore. It's not going to work out. This is not a shidduch. They're getting on my nerves too often. So I'm going to do my thing in Shamayim, and I'm going to send a malach. And the malach is going to lead Klal Yisrael. So Klal Yisrael figured that on Yom Kippurim, when Hashem said, Salachti kidvarecha, the Rebbeinu Shalom is going to come back. Hashem said, no, not interested in you anymore. So Klal Yisrael said, wait a second. You forgive us, but you're not going to lead us anymore? Hashem says, that's right. You're not going to be punished. I don't have any grudges against you. You're going to have a wonderful life, but I don't like you anymore. I don't like you. Me and you, we're not together anymore. Rabbeinu Yoina gives the following mashal. Rabbeinu Yonah in the Sha'ar Teshuva writes that for tzaddikim, kapara is not enough. You know, we go on Yom Kippur and we do tshuva, ashamnu, bagadnu, and we say we're never going to do all these bad things anymore. From now on, we're never going to bring a phone into the Beit HaKnesset ever again. That's what we say on Yom Kippur. Because if you bring a phone into a Beit HaKnesset, ein tefillah, ve'ein Torah. So what are you doing in here? In other words, you have a phone out in the middle of davening. So what are you doing? You're praying to the Lord, and you're being distracted by your phone. Now, there's a mitzvah in the Torah, ula avdoi b'chol levavchem, to serve God with all your heart. The mitzvah of tefillah is to serve God with all your heart. If you have a phone, you're not serving God with all your heart. You're serving God with about 60, maybe 53.5%, and the other half is dedicated to your Verizon plan. So, it's not a half a tefillah, it's ein tefillah, zelo tefillah. Then, the other thing is, Torah, if you look at your phone every 30 seconds or every 60 seconds, ze piske. This is not consistent learning. Rabbi Akiva was makbid when he would learn. He would not even interrupt. You know the story. Rabbi Akiva came back after 12 years. He didn't even say hello to his wife. He went straight back to the Beis HaKnesset. Reb Chaim Shmulevitz asked, why didn't Rabbi Akiva go to his wife and say, thank you so much for letting me go to yeshiva. I really appreciate you're taking care of all the carpools. Every night, every day, Rabbi Akiva's wife did carpool. The neighbor said, hey, why doesn't your husband ever do carpool? No, he's going away to learn in yeshiva. So Rabbi Akiva is learning. So Rabbi Akiva should have come back and said, Mrs. Rabbi Akiva, thank you so much. No, says Reb Chaim Shmulevitz. If Rabbi Akiva would have gone to his wife and he would have said, thank you, then his learning would have been 12 years and 12 years. And now that he didn't interrupt, it was 24 years consistent. And Rabbi Akiva knew that in order to generate spiritual energy, you need consistency. You know, it's like when you charge your cell phone, you charge it for 10 minutes, it goes up 1 point. You charge it for an hour, it goes up 10 points. You charge it for 3 hours, it's on 100%. Because it has to warm up. It's the same thing with Limud Torah. You interrupt, you have a conversation, you look, you get distracted. During Tefillah, during Torah, it's you and the Ribono Shel Olam. If you can only concentrate 10 minutes, great. Make sure it's 10 straight minutes. You can concentrate 5 minutes, make sure it's 5 straight minutes. So, thank you very much. So what does it have to do with anything? Yeah, we're talking about Teshuva on Yom Kippur. So we go on Yom Kippur, we say, God, this year we're going to pray properly. This year we're going to learn Torah properly. This year we're going to speak with sensitivity to our wives, to our brothers, to our sisters, to our family. So we think we were finished, we're done. No, we didn't even get started yet. Kapara is not enough. It's not enough that God is not going to punish us. We want the Ribono Shel Olam to want us. We want God to have ratzon toward us. We want Hashem to want our tefillah. We want Hashem to want our Torah. We want the Ribono Shel Olam to desire our mitzvot. And that's a much higher level than just doing tshuva. You could do tshuva, and God could say, I'm not going to punish you. But it doesn't mean He wants us. He might not want us anymore. For tzaddikim, says Rabbeinu Yonah, kapara is only first base. Tzaddikim want the ratzon of Hashem, the desire of Hashem. Tzaddikim want the Ribono Shel Olam to want us. And what happened was, Moshe comes out on Yom Kippur, and God gave him the tablets, the second tablets, and Moshe says, where are the clouds of glory? God said, what do you mean where they are? I don't like you anymore. I'm not going to punish you, but I don't like you. You're going to have malach, and I'm going to have nothing to do with you anymore. And the Jewish people were devastated, because for tzaddikim, they want ha'aras panav shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. They want Hashem to shine His face on us. We want Hashem to want us. So Moshe Rabbeinu was trying to figure out, how are we going to get back HaKadosh Baruch Hu's love? We're not going to be punished, but that's not enough. So Moshe Rabbeinu commanded the Jewish people to build the Mishkan on the 11th day of Tishrei. The Jewish people brought donations, baboker, the 12th, the 13th. The 14th, there's a different perushim what happened. According to one version of the Gra, the Chachamim weighed and evaluated all of the donations. However, the way the Gra says it in the Shem Olam, the 14th of Tishrei was Shabbat. So on that day, Vayikalei ha'amei havi, and the Gemara in Shabbos learns out Tchumin from the pasuk that occurred on the 14th of Tishrei. And then on the 15th of Tishrei, the Jewish people built the Mishkan. And they took out their binoculars, and coming down from Shamayim, after an absence of 80 days, was the return of the Ananei HaKavod. And that meant, not only did God forgive us, but He wants us again. He has ratzon to us. He desires us again. I'm going to tell you another Gra, the Gra in his Perush on Tefillah. The Gra in his commentary to Ahava Rabba. How do you say it? Ahavat Olam? In B'Shacharit? Ahavat Olam, Ahavtanu Hashem Elokeinu, Chemla, Gedoyla, Viseira, Chamat Aleinu. Says the Goin. Ahavat Olam, Ahavtanu, God loved us eternally when He took us out of Mitzrayim. Chemla gedoyla v'seira chamalta aleinu. God had exceeding mercy on us after the Chet HaEgel, and we did Teshuva, and we built the Mishkan, and He came back to us. He loved us even more than before we sinned. Now that's a very godly level that is very hard for a human being to achieve. For us human beings, if somebody hurts us, and we're mochel them, it's very hard for us ever to get back to the same level of relationship that we once were on. We have a hard time doing that. We have a hard time erasing from our memory the hurt that somebody inflicted on us. But the Ribbon Shalom has a different midah. Not only does God forget about something that a person did that was wrong, Hashem draws the person even closer to Him than before the sin. That's b'makom shabalei tshuva oimdim tzadikim gmor eichayom lamoid. When a person sins and then does Teshuvah, not only does God bring them back, Chadesh Yamenu Kekedem, God brings them even closer than before. Says the Tomer Devora, from God we need to learn that if somebody hurts you, let's say somebody makes a wedding and they don't invite you. And then they come, oh, I'm so sorry, I forgot to invite you. So, next time, you're not really, you bear a grudge against them. Says the Tomer Devora, not only should you try to forget about what they did, you should go out of your way to be closer with them than you ever were before. Where do we learn that from? We learn that from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Ahava Solam Ahavtanu Hashem Elokeinu, Chemla Gedoyla Viseira Chamalta Aleinu. The Ribbon Shalom took us back and loved us even more than ever before. Says the Meshech Chochmah, there is no Yom Tov in the Torah to commemorate the clouds of glory. We do not celebrate miracles. We don't just celebrate a miracle. We're not celebrating the miracle of Ananei HaKavod. We're celebrating the return of the Ananei HaKavod. Because the return of the Ananei HaKavod marked the fact that Hashem took us back and He loved us even more than before we sinned. And therefore, says the Meshech Chochmah, originally, the Yom Tov of Sukkot, there was no mitzvah to sit in a sukkah. What do you have to sit in a sukkah for? Because of clouds of glory? Why would you remember clouds of glory? Says the Meshech Chochmah, it seems like Sukkot was only one day. Originally, when God gave us the Yom Tov of Sukkot, this is what the Meshech Chochmah writes, and he writes similar things in a number of places al Torah. This is based on the approach of the Sforno. Originally, Yom Tov Sukkot was one day. You know what the Yom Tov was? It was an agricultural holiday. We gather in the grain, we celebrate. And that's why in Parshas Mishpatim, Sukkot is called Chag HaAsif. And that's why in Parshas Kisisa, it's called Chag HaAsif. Well, what more should it be? A Yom Tov to commemorate clouds of glory? Why would anyone celebrate clouds of glory? But after the sin of the Egel, and the clouds of glory left, and we did Teshuva, and the clouds of glory came back, and that marked that Hashem loved us even more than before, now the Yom Tov of Sukkot had a promotion. Now it's a 7-day holiday, and it's called Chag HaSukkot, and now you have to sit under the shade of a sukkah. That's the approach of the Meshech Chochmah, based on the Gra. I'll tell you a fifth gra that fits into this. We know who wrote the tefillot of all of our tefillot of Shemona Esrei. Who wrote them? The men of the Great Assembly. You know, who are these men? This is not a congress. On the assembly of the Anshe Knezah, you had Nevi'im, you had prophets, you had Mordechai, you had Ezra. These were men who had Nevuah. They could probe the highest heavens, and they could understand what words need to be said to activate the various olamot. And they composed the following words on the Shalosh Regalim. Ata b'chartanu mikol ha'amim. Ahavta oisanu v'ratzisa banu. Says the Vilna Gaon, these three expressions refer to the Shalosh Regalim. Ata b'chartanu mikol ha'amim refers to the Yom Tov of Pesach. God selected us from all the nations when He took us out of Egypt. Ahavta oisanu, God showed His love to us when He gave us the Torah. The Torah is like a marriage. Hashem married us when He gave us the Torah. Viratzisa banu. What does viratzisa banu mean? Viratzisa banu means after we sinned against Him, He was appeased by our avodah. That refers to the Yom Tov of Sukkot. In other words, you want to know what Sukkot is? 2 words. Viratzisa banu. That God was appeased by us. Sukkis, you want to appreciate the spiritual energy of Sukkot. You just have to look at 2 words of Anshe Knesset Hagdolah. Viratzisa banu. That God found favor with us after the Chet HaEgel. Tell you an amazing chidush. Tosfos in Masechta Pesachim. Question. Do women have to sit in the sukkah? No. If a woman wants to sit in a sukkah, does she get a mitzvah?
No.
Yeah? If a woman wants to sit in a sukkah, does she get a mitzvah?
Yes.
Yeah. She doesn't have to. She gets a mitzvah. Now I'm going to ask you, this is a very sensitive question. Can a woman make a bracha on sitting in the sukkah? What? So it's a big machlokes between the Balei HaTosfos and the Rambam. So Ashkenazim follow the Balei HaTosfos. So our women make a bracha on the sukkah. They make a bracha on the Daled Minim. They make a bracha on Psukei de Zimra. Yeah? For the Sfaradim follow the Rambam. They, at least Rabbi Vadya says, cannot make a bracha on Daled Minim, cannot make a bracha on sukkah. Could they say Psukei de Zimra? Brasha Amar? Well, Rabbi Vadya says not to, right? So, Sfardim do not make a bracha, women do not make a bracha on a Zman Grama. Tosfos has the following question. Why are women exempt from the mitzvah of Sukkah? Why don't we apply the following principle? Af, heim, hayu, ba'oisai hanis. In other words, do women light menorah? Yeah, sure. Do women have to hear Megillah? Sure. Why? But it's Zman Grama. So we say, the Gemara says, Af heim hayu ba'oisai hanis. The women were also part of the miracle of Chanukah, of Purim. They drink Dalet Kosos, Af heim hayu ba'oisai hanis. So why are women exempt from Sukkah? Why don't we say Af heim hayu ba'oisai hanis? So there are 3 different approaches in Tosfos and Shas. Pri Megadim quotes all 3. But Tosfos commonly says the svara of Af heim hayu ba'oisai hanis only applies to mitzvah d'Rabbanan, not to d'Oraisa. But let's stick with Tosfos' question for a moment. Why are women not chayiv in mitzvah sukkah? Because Af heim hayu ba'oisai hanis. Come the Achronim and they say, what do you mean Af heim hayu ba'oisai hanis? What miracle? You think Sukkot is a celebration of the miracle of Anani HaKavod? We don't celebrate miracles. Sukkot is not a celebration of Anani HaKavod. Sukkot is a celebration of the return of the Anani HaKavod. Now, why did the Anani HaKavod leave? Because of the Chet HaEgel. Who made the Egel? The men. Women didn't make the Egel. You know, Rabbi Kiva Eger brings down, men don't wear gold on Yom HaKippurim. Why? Ein kateger nasa saneger. Says Rabbi Kiva Eger, women can wear gold. Why? They didn't make the Egel. Why do women have Rosh Chodesh? Because they didn't make the Egel. So the Achronim say, to answer Tosfos' kasha, Afheim Hayu Ba'osei Anes doesn't apply to Sukkah. Because we're not celebrating the miracle of Anan Yaakov, we're celebrating the return of the Anan Yaakov. The Anan Yaakov didn't return for the women, they returned for the men. The women wouldn't have lost it to begin with. Now if you look in the words of the Chassam Sofer, he says it a little differently. And this would answer another question. Because I could tell you're all bothered by a pasuk in Nehemiah. I could tell this is on your mind. In Nehemiah, if you look on your sheet number 17, the pasuk says, V'ata b'rachamecha harabim lo yazavtam v'midbar. God, you never forsook us in the desert. Es amud he'anan lo yisar me'aleim. You never removed the amud anan. B'yomam lahanchosam b'aderech. V'es amud ha'esh b'layla lahar lahem. The pasuk says, Ananei HaKavod never left. So what's the Gra saying? That Sukkot is a commemoration of the return of Ananei HaKavod. The pasuk says, Ananei HaKavod never left. This is a big kasha on the Gra. I recently found that Reb Chaim Kanievsky asked this question in Taimo Dekra. And Reb Chaim says there were 7 Ananei HaKavod. 6 that put them in a box, and a 7th that led them. The Ananei HaKavod that led them never departed. The other 6 went away. Listen to this Chassam Sofer. The Chassam Sofer says that when the Jews sinned by the Egel, the Ananei HaKavod didn't leave. It expelled them. But it only expelled the men. The women were always in the Ananei HaKavod. According to that explains the pasuk in Nehemiah. The pasuk in Nehemiah says, God, you never removed the Ananei HaKavod. Sure, God never removed it. He removed us from it. But Ananei HaKavod are always there. And this explains why we would not apply the svara of Afheim Hayu Ba'osei Anes to women. Because women had Ananei HaKavod the whole time. We're commemorating the return. It didn't return for them. They never lost it to begin with. There's a medrash in Shiurim that says that there are 3 levels of love God has for the Jewish people. First he says, my people, I love you so much, I call you my daughter. I love you even more, Yidden, I call you Achosi, I call you my sister. I love you even more, I call you my mother. What does that mean? God calls us His daughter, He calls us His sister, He calls us His mother. Says Rav Meir Simcha of Dvinsk, we have 3 Yom Tovim, Pesach, Shavuos, and Sukkot. Each Yom Tov is a reflection of a different type of relationship we have with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We begin with the Yom Tov of Pesach. The Yom Tov of Pesach, we were down and out. We were on a very low madrega. We were on Mem Tesh Sharei Tumah. If we would have remained in Egypt a moment longer, we would have fallen to the point of no return. We were Eiroim Ve'eria. We didn't deserve to be taken out. God yanked us out. What is that called? Isarusa de la'ela. God yanked us out. God, so to speak, was our mother and we were His daughter. We didn't do anything. We were the beneficiaries of God's kindness. God says, I love you, you're my daughter. But then there's an even higher level. You're my sister. At Shavuos, at Matan Torah, God came down on Har Sinai, He came close to us, but we came close to Him. We prepared for 3 days. We separated Min HaIsha. We said Nasa V'Nishma. We counted 49 days. So it was a mutual relationship. God came close to us. We came close to Him. We're called Achosi. We're called His sister. But you know what the highest level is? The highest level is Sukkot. God didn't do anything. We did it. We worked hard. Not only to get kapara, we worked hard to get ritzoi, to get the desire of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And therefore, on the Yom Tov of Sukkot, God calls us, we're His mother. Now listen carefully. Which Yom Tov is the greatest man of Simcha? Sukkot. Why is that? Very simple. Because a person is only happy when they work hard. Not when they get a government handout. Not when they get a freebie. Not when they get welfare. A person is happy when they earn their keep. The more yigiyah, the more amelut, the more simcha. On Pesach, we're not so happy. It was a gift. On Shavuot, we're a little bit happy. Akol modim deba'atzeres ba'ina nami lachem. On Sukkot, it was amelut. It was our avodah. We're God's mother, so to speak. We did all the avodah. When you work for something, you're happy. By the way, nowadays people are looking for the secret of happiness. Everyone's searching for happiness. Why? Because nobody has to work for anything anymore. What kind of happiness is there? I want this kind of food done this way with this kind of sauce. Now I'm going to press this button and it's going to be here in 5 minutes. So everything comes on a silver platter. There's no simcha because there's no amelut, there's no yigiyah, there's no work. Sukkos, we worked for our relationship, so it's zman simchasenu. And now comes the grand finale. So where does Simchas Torah come in? What are we dancing with Torahs for? What's that got to do with Ananei HaKavod? Very simple. What are we doing on the Yom Tov of Sukkot? We're trying to rectify the sin of the golden calf. Okay? So what are we missing? We had Yom HaKippurim. We returned to God. God returned to us. So we're back with the Ribono Shel Olam. There's one problem. The problem is that God told Moshe, hey Moshe, the Jews are worshiping the golden calf. Moshe said, really? So what? He didn't break the luchot. Then Moshe looks down and he sees the Jews worshiping the golden calf. And what does Moshe do with the luchot? Nothing. But the pasuk says, Vayar et ha'egel v'hamecholot. Moshe saw they were dancing. Says the Sefarno, when a person has simcha, when they do an aveira, ein tikva. If a person does an aveira and they feel guilty about it, they could change. If they feel bad about it, that means they recognize it's wrong and they could always correct it. But if a person enjoys an aveira, if a person is dancing about an aveira, that means the aveira became part of their essence. It's very hard to correct, very hard to overcome that. When Moshe Rabbeinu saw them dancing around the Egel, Moshe said, forget it, they're a lost cause. So we have Yom Kippur, we're Mesakin Chet HaEgel. We have Sukkot, God came back with the clouds of glory. There's one problem. In order to do it to Teshuva Shalema, you have to be Mesakin, the kilkel, in the ofen that you're a Mekalka. So if we serve the Egel by dancing, the way to rectify that is we have to show God we're back on your side, not just we're coming to the Beis HaKnesset and we're miserable about it. Not just we love you again. The same way we danced around the Egel, now we're going to dance with the Torah. Now we're going to dance with the Hoshanot. Now we're going to dance Simcha. That's a complete rectification of the Chet HaEgel, and that's the crescendo of the tikkun for the Chet HaEgel. Simchat Torah. Don't underestimate the power of Simchat Torah. First of all, Mishnah Berurah brings down that the Arizal said that the height of his madrega he achieved not on Yom Kippur, not on Hoshana Rabba, not on Tisha B'Av. The height of the madrega the Arizal achieved Besimcha shel mitzvah. The greatest madregos a person could achieve, Besimcha shel mitzvah. So don't be the guy sitting around in the corner, I have to be Maver Sedra, I have to learn this, I have to learn that. Yesh zman lakol. Simchat Torah is an opportunity to reach highest madrega of the whole year. Secondly, Reb Chaim Falaji brings down in the Moed L'Chol Chai. Rabbi Elbaz probably knows better than me. Rabbi Avadia's father's name was Gali. He had a nickname. Gali. Why was he called Gali? Because he was misameach over at the Torah. He would sing nigunim. He would go to the Chasan Torah. He was b'simcha atzuma for Simchat Torah. And it's said that perhaps why he was zochet to a son who was illuminated the world was the simcha shel mitzvah he had to be mesameach in the Torah. Says Reb Chaim Falaji, the success of your children in Yiras Shamayim, in Ahavat Torah, is very dependent on how a child sees the simcha the father has on Simchat Torah. Reb Chaim Falaji writes, Maisa Shahaya, that there was an individual who was mesameach on Simchat Torah more than anybody, in a very unusual way, in a very extraordinary way. Says Reb Chaim, this man had children, grandchildren, loimdei Torah, marbitzei Torah, yirei shamayim, and it was attributed not to his hasmada, not to his lomdos, it was attributed to the simcha shel mitzvah that he demonstrated on Simchas Torah. So realize, your ruchnius, your madrega and ruchnius, is dependent on your simcha shel mitzvah on Simchas Torah. The madrega of your children, it's dependent on the way you dance for the Torah and Simchat Torah. The Chida writes a Yehi Ratzon that is recited between the Hakafot. And in that tefillah, the Chida says that as we dance around the Torah, as we dance around the Bima, we are Mishaber, the Mechitzot Shel Barzel Beinenu Levein Avinu Shabashamayim. That by dancing around the Torah, we could shatter any separation between us and the Rebbeinu Shalom. Isn't that amazing? Here it is, Rosh Hashanah, we blow shofar. There's still this iron fence between us and God. Yom Kippur, we fast the whole day. There's still the iron curtain. We haven't toppled the iron curtain. We have the whole Yom Tov of Sukkot. We're smashing the Aravot. I don't know about you, but Ashkenazim, some people, they smash the Aravot. They beat it to smithereens. You know what smithereens are? They beat it to a pulp. I don't know, they think it's Amalek. Still, there's this iron wall between us and God. Not until the Simcha of Simchat Torah are we able to shatter the separation between us and God. When a person makes a sin, they create a havdalah between them and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And when we dance on Simchat Torah, we should think we are removing all the barriers Beinenu uvein Avinu Shabashamayim. The Zohar HaKadosh says that on the Yom Tif of Shmini Atzeres, there are no mitzvot. You ever realize, I'm going to go with, there's a big discussion, Shmini Atzeret, is it a chag or is it not a chag? You say chag? Sfardim say chag, based on Machaber. Ashkenazim, we don't say chag. Anyone who says chag, we throw them out of the shul. We take Hoshana, no, just joking. But we don't say chag, Shmini Atzeret. It's a big machlokes, whether you're allowed to call Shmini Atzeret a chag. Why not? It's a Yom Tif, why not? Chassam Sofer quotes Rama Mipano. What does the word chag mean? Circle. Every Yom Tif is a circle that revolves around a mitzvah. So Rosh Hashanah revolves around shofar. Yom Kippur revolves around the Inuyim. Sukkot revolves around Daled Minim. Shavuos revolves around Shtei HaLechem. Atzeres revolves around only the one above. It's not a chag. It doesn't revolve around. Says Rama Mipano, all the Yomim Tovim revolve around Shmini Atzeres. That's why the Gra was happiest on Shmini Atzeres than any time of the year. The mashal is like this. If you don't like someone, let's say a guest comes from out of town. If you really don't like him, you take him to a very good restaurant that has a lot of food. This way you don't have to talk to him, you could just eat. Right? If you like him a little bit, then you go out for pizza. If you really like him, you just get a coffee. This way you could talk to him. So during the Yom Tov of Sukkot, when all the nations of the world are in the Beit HaMikdash, God said, bring a lot of cows. Let them be busy with cows. Then when they all leave, it's just me and you. I don't want to be distracted by any karbanot. I don't want you to be distracted by any mitzvot. The lashon of Bnei Yissaschar is, I just want to enjoy your company. Bekiruv basar mamash v'havein. It's the most intimate time we are with the Rebbeinu Shalom the whole year. No mitzvot. It's just us and God. Says Zohar HaKadosh, if you have the personal audience of God, you can ask for anything you want, and Hashem will accede your request. Says Reb Chaim Falaji, based on the Zohar, there is no greater day of tefillah the whole year than Shmini Atzeres and Simchat Torah. In fact, Kloisenberger Rabba writes in his Tshuvot that in the city of Dinov, there were more bechiyot on Shmini Atzeret than by Ne'ilah. When they would say, Anenu, Anenu, b'yom kareinu, Ana Hashem Hoshana. They would say that with more kavana than any tefillah the whole year, because here you're in the personal audience of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So realize that Shmini Atzeres Simchat Torah, you could reach the highest madregos through Simcha. You could elevate your whole family. You could bring Yirah Shamayim and Torah to your children. You could be Meshaber, Mechitzot Shel Barzel, between HaKadosh Baruch Hu and Klal Yisrael. You could be Zocheh to have all your tefillos answered. So we should all be Zocheh. Anenu b'yom karenu, Ana Hashem Hoshiana, Ana Hashem Hatzlichana. All of our tefillos should be Niskabel, Barachamim Uvaratzain. Thank you so much for having me. Agot in Kvittel, Piskotava, Agot Yamtev, Chasima Taiva. Good Yamtev, Shkaya,
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.